let's give people what they want, and that is the Sunday six pack presented by our friends at the Athletic Brewing Company. For my first pick of the Week 6 Sunday six pack, I am going with the Pittsburgh Steelers -4.5 at BetMGM at home against the Seattle Seahawks. And this is not a spot I thought I'd be taking as early as last week, but looking at what's gone on with the Seahawks here and Russell Wilson going down and Geno Smith having to step in, I think Pittsburgh can actually get some separation in this spot. And the big reason why, obviously, everyone's going to probably tweet out and talk to me about the Pittsburgh offense, which still needs work. But Pittsburgh's defense, they're number 5 in pressure rate. Geno Smith, last week, he looked good, right? Like everyone saw at prime time, Geno, touchdown drive. Geno Smith under pressure in that game, 2 of 8, 12 yards, and a pick. So the real issue is that it was late in the game. The Rams are kind of playing back, on a lot of key plays. But when he was under pressure, he did absolutely nothing. Now, Geno Smith hasn't really played much in a while, but I went back to his last full season as a starter with the Jets. Under pressure, 38.5% completions, a 52.8 passer rating. So, and this is his numbers throughout his career under pressure. That's why he's not a starting quarterback in this league. So you're in Pittsburgh in a hostile environment. I know they got the long week, but it's still Geno Smith, pressure, hostile environment. And then you look on the other side, and there were some encouraging things I saw from Pittsburgh in that game against Denver. Now, obviously the defense still had to steal it with the interception at the end, but Pittsburgh did get a pretty big lead in that game. And now they face Seattle's defense, which is ranked 25th in DVOA. And remember, that's schedule adjusted. This is the easiest defense Pittsburgh has faced all year. So while Pittsburgh's offense there's obviously some concerns there, we also have to put it into context. They face 4 top 13 defenses by DVOA. Buffalo, number 1, Cincinnati, number 7, Denver, number 10, and Vegas, number 13. So Vegas has been a surprisingly good defense this year. Crosby getting a lot of pressure. And then Green Bay was 20th. That was the one, below average unit they faced. And that was still 5 spots better than the Seattle defense. So that's number 1. They faced a tough schedule. 2, Pittsburgh did something interesting last week in their run game. They switched to exclusively a man blocking scheme. They didn't run any zone, any outside zone, anything. They all man blocking for every single run play last week. And they actually put up 135 rushing yards. They averaged 4.2 an attempt. But the big thing, they averaged 1.7 yards before contact. In the first 4 weeks, they had 64 carries and had just 61 yards before contact. So less than a yard on average before contact in weeks 1 through 4. Then they play
against a good defense. Yeah.
Yeah. A very good Denver defense. And granted, I thought Fangio could have done some things different. They kept those 2 safeties back. Maybe they get a guy up in the box. They limit that a little bit better. But I really think what it was just, putting a hat on a hat and going forward. There was none of this. Get
Najee going forward.
Yeah, get Najee going forward. Because remember, what did Najee specialize at in school? This is the reason I thought it was a good fit here. I thought it was a better pick than like ETN going to the Jaguars, which we'll never know because he got hurt. But Najee specialized in his yards after contact, going forward, covering up for an O-line. So if they could do this, I think they can win. I think they can get another, 2 possession lead like they did against Denver. And then, maybe they get a backdoor late, if they're kind of playing coverage late and Geno, is able to throw from a clean pocket again. They do have Metcalf and Lockett. Those are good receivers. But really, the issue here is you're in a hostile environment for Geno, and he's just been completely terrible versus pressure. And Pittsburgh's offense trending up and may not be as poor as we initially thought. Like, there's still concerns, but this is going to be the easiest defense they face. So I'm going to buy on this Pittsburgh team now because I could see myself still fading them a lot down the stretch. They're going to have issues, especially if they can't stay healthy. But I like them in this spot. -4.5 against Seattle. I'd take this up to 5.5. I expect Pittsburgh to win by a possession or more.
Yeah, I don't think I can lay points with the Steelers offense, especially yet.
Fair.
Especially in this is a spot where they generally come out flat. Like they just won a big game, and now they're playing Geno Smith as a favorite. So Steelers fans are probably a little nervous here about this game. Like they can see Geno Smith beating them. But I agree. I think it's, if you're going to bet this, it's Steelers or nothing. I mean, the Seahawks, I think this line should be closer to 6. The Seahawks, without Russ, are like to poverty. I mean, like they're one of the worst teams in the NFL. I mean, what do they have? They just have receivers. Their defense is terrible. They have a couple good, decent tackle, but like their interior offensive line is bad. Like there's nothing really good about this team. Then I just have receivers, but they have Geno Smith who has to get them the ball. They have a bad defense. So this is a really bad, this all of a sudden becomes a really bad team, I think. Yeah, this is a team that I only thought was average. And now you lose the one guy that can, cover games for them, win games for them, elevate them, and on a week-to-week basis, you lose him. I mean, it's a guy who, you could argue is in the MVP conversation every single year. So I don't disagree. I think it's either Pittsburgh or nothing.
And I knew you were going to come at me with Pittsburgh potentially coming out flat. And I was worried about that too. Apparently it happens more in road games when they're road favorites, but I got a trend though, because I know the listeners are probably still throwing up, thinking like, oh man, do I want to bet Pittsburgh and lay points? So I do have a trend. So the line opened at 3.5. It's up to 4.5, even 5 at some books. So I looked this up. When Roethlisberger is the quarterback and the line moves in his favor, when Pittsburgh's at home, 23, 8-1, 74% against the spread, in his career. So the market tends to be a good, like a reliable indicator of when to fade Pittsburgh in these spots. This is not one of those times. They're covering, with that 23, 8-1 record, they're covering by an average of 4.2 a game. So again, that's why I think that, just stepping back, I think Pittsburgh can, if I was just kind of handicapping this without numbers, I'd say Pittsburgh probably can get up by a touchdown here and hold them off, in a low scoring game. But that's just had to throw that trend out there, because I was worried about it too. But this actually hasn't been like one of those, terrible spots historically, at least for Big Ben. Of course, he's not as good anymore, so maybe that's out the window, but worth noting.
Yep. No, it's a good point. It does usually happen on the road. All right, for my first pick and the second overall pick of the Sunday 6-pack, I'm going with the Cleveland Browns -3 at home against the Arizona Cardinals. Look, went against the Cardinals last week. Would bet more if you told me how that game played out. They were the better team with a rookie quarterback making his first start on the road. They outgained them. They had more yards per play. They had more opportunities inside the red zone. I mean, 1 for 5 on 4th down. They get one of those. They cover 2 of them. They win. Arizona couldn't do anything against a San Fran team that was missing, a San Francisco team that was missing many different players, starting a rookie quarterback. So just this love for Arizona, there's certain factors that aren't being baked into their numbers, right? We were on them. I loved them week 1 against Tennessee.
That was all you.
And I said, look, this is all about Tennessee is not ready yet. They're dealing with COVID, new offense, blah, blah, blah. That's all that was. Now, they're getting credit for that win in their numbers. They're still getting credit for the win over San Fran, but this was a rookie quarterback making his first start, and they got outplayed anyway. But a banged up 49ers team, they were beaten. They played the Jags, and they were losing by 9 late in the third quarter before – a pick 6, a pick on a flea flicker. They beat the Vikings on Vikings missed a field goal. They had one really impressive win over the Rams. That's it. And this is carrying them just so far in everyone's eyes. And because they're undefeated, they remind me a lot of the Steelers of last year, that they're stealing these wins and everyone thinks they're a lot better than they really are. Now, obviously you have Kyler Murray instead of Ben Roethlisberger, but Kyler Murray is dealing with a shoulder injury, and we've seen that go pretty bad before. And I think that might have factored into why the offense looked so stagnant last week. So keep an eye on that. There's also, it looks like 20-mile-an-hour winds in Cleveland, up to 30-mile-an-hour wind gusts. Well, guess who that favors? The Browns and their running game. The Cardinals are allowing 5.4 yards per carry. That's 31st in the NFL. Their linebackers really struggle against the run, Hicks and Simmons. I just think that the Browns can go really heavy here. And, there's a chance Landry comes back. I doubt it, but I think they can just dominate the line of scrimmage here and run all over this Cardinals team. No Chandler Jones for the Cardinals as well. And, if Baker Mayfield does have to throw it, that's huge because you look at him again this year, as drastic of splits as any quarterback in the middle, when under pressure versus not. So if he does have to throw, he's going to have to throw every once in a while. That's big that Chandler Jones is not playing. The Browns could easily be the 5-0 team here, and the Cardinals could be 3-2, and this line would be where it was in the preseason, around 5.5. The Browns lost last week to the Chargers, and again, they could have won if not for a botched PI call, and the Chargers going 50 of 50 on 4th down, and then they lost to the Chiefs on a botched punt play. I just think that you're getting some value here with the Browns in a good situation, especially when you consider that there's going to be 20, maybe 30-mile-an-hour wind gusts here. Kyler Murray could be banged up. Joe Woods also does an excellent job of taking away opposing number one receivers. Hopkins, Max Williams, their tight end, is now out. And I think the Cardinals also have some third down regression coming on both sides. Arizona's defense is 31st in success rate on early downs, which is more predictive. The Browns, by the way, their defense, number 1. And on third downs, the Browns are 20, the Cardinals are 4th. So this Cardinals defense has been overperforming on third down. Their interior defensive line and their linebackers are just not going to be able to hold up here. This reminds me a lot of the Seahawks game last year. Arizona at home picked off a 5-0 Seattle team. There's also a big coaching edge here. So give me Stefanski. Everyone's talking about Brandon Staley going for it on 4th down. If you look at the charts and see who's gone for it when they should have, Brandon Staley's in the middle of the pack. Stefanski is way up ahead of everybody. So give me Stefanski here too. So I think that there's a lot working in the Browns' favor here. It's worth noting Greedy Williams, Denzel Ward, Newsome, their 3 corners were all questionable, all practiced today. JOK is fine. Looks like Wills is a go. I think Shredders, from people I talked to, is going to play. Garrett is banged up, but people expect him to play. So Cleveland is a little nicked up, but it's not as bad as it could have been based on the reports today. So give me the Browns -3. You could find up 2.5 juiced up to, if you find a -120, I would prefer that. But I think the Browns get this done here on the back of their defense in a windy environment and their running game, which is the best in the NFL.
So you essentially think the Browns are going to probably win by a touchdown plus, because there might not be as many kicks in this game either. That's why it's because -3. I know you don't usually take the -3s, especially on the show because of the there's 0 points.
Well, I took a 2. Yeah, I took a 2.5, but I think that their field goals are less likely in this game. Mm-hmm. And we especially with 2 more aggressive coaches on 4th downs. And against this run defense, I expect the Browns to be going for it a lot on 4th and short, trying to get touchdowns. So yeah, I think that this is a reality check for the Cardinals in Cleveland. It's just it's a bad matchup, and then the wind just makes it a nightmare. And then if Kyler Murray's shoulder is really hurt, they have no shot.
Yeah, it's just one because I was kind of very tempted to already bet this one, and it already moved to 3, so that's kind of why I was a little more hesitant because I didn't get the 2.5. But when I saw Chandler Jones and the center Rodney Hudson for the Cardinals going to be out, in addition to the Murray injury, I mean, that always sets off a red alert for me when you have the center and the top pass rusher. Now, it didn't work out last week with the Lions, but we all saw that game. The Vikings were up 10 and should have covered that, or at least pushed if you got the 10, and they just collapsed. The Browns, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, if they're in that spot, they're not likely to do it. So you just see these things usually play out that way more often than not. So yeah, I'm probably going to go Browns here, but I was just curious about that. The number, wasn't sure if I should still take it. For my second pick and the 3rd overall pick of the week 6 Sunday 6-pack, we're going to get ugly. We're going to get ugly and go with the Chicago Bears plus 4.5 home dog to the mighty Green Bay Packers, which I happen to think are in fact not so mighty. Looking at the Packers, this is the only team in the league that's 4-1 with a negative point differential. They still haven't quite recovered from that blowout loss to the Saints in week 1. But remember, point differential is more predictive than, win-loss record. This is the point in the season where I think people still overreact to these kind of things, especially when you have a reputation. The Packers have this reputation, because of Aaron Rodgers, because they made the playoffs. The Bears have a totally different reputation. But like just looking back on it, in week 6, you have underdogs +3 or more against a favorite with a winning against the spread record, who also made the playoffs the last year. The underdogs are 36-12-3 against the spread, 75% since 2003, according to our Action Labs data. But really what I'm looking at here is the way Chicago's kind of changed the way they played too. I think Chicago could just muck up this game. And even if Green Bay wins, I think it's by 3, maybe it's by 4. So I love the hook at the 4.5. Green Bay's 20th in defensive DVOA, but they're 29th against the rush. Chicago in the last 2 weeks, 76 runs, just 41 passes. They're going 65% run. They're running, 2/3 of the time on early downs. So, and they're max protecting. And so Green Bay's doing, they don't have no Jair Alexander. So Justin Fields here, he can move around a little bit. He hasn't been running, but I think Mooney and Robinson against this secondary in a max protect scheme, supported by a running game with, Williams, Khalil Herbert looked really good last week. 18 carries for 75 yards. So I just think Chicago can muck up this game, keep it close. So on the year, Green Bay is 26th in early down success rate on offense. That's 2 spots worse than the Bears. That's counting all the Andy Dalton starts. That's counting the Justin Fields, nightmare, first start against Cleveland. The Bears have still been more successful on average on early downs than the Green Bay Packers. Now, the Packers did play some tough defenses, but that just kind of shows you that this Packers team is vulnerable. It's really only Devontae Adams. And guess what? The Bears, they haven't been allowing much to opposing number 1 receivers, just 50.9 schedule adjusted yards per game to opposing number 1 receivers. That's second fewest in the league for Chicago.
They have one good corner. That's what helps.
Right,
they have one good corner in Johnson.
But the issue is that, and they're going to move Devontae Adams around, but, Chicago leads the league in sacks. Their pressure rate hasn't been as great as you'd think, considering they're leading the lead in sacks. But, this is going to be a game in Chicago, physical game, I think. The Bears playing physical. The Packers not doing good on early downs. Rodgers without you, and you talked about it last week. I think without Valdez-Scantling, it really does change that offense a little, because Aaron Rodgers could keep defenses honest, kind of chucking one to Valdez-Scantling every once in a while, even if they didn't complete it. Now it's really all about Adams. Lazard just runs wind sprints out there. He's like invisible. Randall Cobb, he's up there in age. He's not really a difference maker on a consistent down and down basis. The running game is struggling. It's 26th in early down success rate. Dylan's kind of mixing in more than maybe they had planned to. So Jones had the one long run last week, but I just see this Packer offense really not necessarily being able to separate in this kind of game, low total in Chicago, Bears going heavy every play. The Bears will play the field position game. If Rodgers and Devontae miss it on any given down, it's probably a punt on that down. Green Bay has struggled in the red zone this year. So I don't know. I think that regresses, but it's worth noting. This is not necessarily the same Packer team that we're used to. They're 27th in red zone conversion rate on offense. They're also 32nd dead last on defense. So Chicago, they're 3rd on defense. So this is like a situation where I don't know if this is the spot where the Packers red zone offense regresses. They're in Chicago. You're going to have to rely on a field goal kicker who's had some struggles last week. Was better than Green Bay in red zone offense, even though they've struggled for most of the year on offense. So there's just a lot of things lining up to where this game, it could be a lot closer than people think. And I'm not going to go with them, but I was very tempted to go with them as my money line dog, because I just see them mucking this game up, playing it real heavy, low scoring game, keeping it real close, if not pulling off the upset. So Chicago +4.5 at home against Green Bay.
Yeah, I think I might join you here. I think the Bears will be able to get pressure, which is key. I mean, Rodgers, when kept clean this year, 10 touchdowns, 1 pick, 81% adjusted completion percentage, 122.6 rating, 3rd in the NFL. Under pressure, 14 of 38, 47% adjusted completion percentage, 0 touchdowns, 2 picks, 31. His rating is 31. That's dead last. out of any quarterback with at least 30 dropbacks under pressure. And you're right. This Packers offense there was some regression coming for this Packers offense. If you last year, all the touchdowns they were scoring in the red zone. So you're kind of seeing that. Last year, they were number one in the red zone at 76.8% touchdown percentage. This year, down to 55%. So yeah, maybe there's some positive regression, but I think that there's some issues with this offense. The offensive line, look, they develop offensive line, but there's been so many moving pieces and young kids in there. And look, they're 15th in line yards this year and 18th in adjusted sack rate. Last year, they were 5th and 6th in those two categories. The Packers offense last year, number one in EPA per play. This year, it's 12th. Why? I mean, they miss MVS. The offensive line isn't as good. Robert Tonyan isn't as effective, so to keep him in to help protect. Lazard isn't getting separation, so it's just not as effective. And then teams are just putting two safeties back, and then Devontae Adams is going to get his no matter what. So the offense has some issues here. The defense is obviously missing a difference maker and one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. They're still missing Zadarius Smith. They can't defend the run. I agree. I think that's what the Bears do. I kind of like the under here too. So I think it's lower scoring, which gives more value to the Bears. So I don't disagree with you. All right. For my second pick and the fourth overall pick of the Sunday six-pack, we are going back to all reliable and Bill Belichick, who has treated me very well when I've taken the Patriots in this podcast. Plus 3.5 at BetMGM at home against the Cowboys. If you follow me on the Action Network app, you saw I took a 4, which is still out there. I don't know if it will be by the time you're listening, but it's a key number. See if you can shop around and find that 4, which I think is important. I don't think that this line should be over a field goal. I'm selling high. I'm basically selling high on the Cowboys here. After they're 5-0 against the spread, they've won 4 straight, 3 of which came at home. And, now they're going on the road. There's a little bit of feeling good about themselves, a little bit of a reality check, and then more importantly, just inflation in the market, I think, because the Cowboys have been so good. And they have. I mean, you look at their offense on early downs, pass, run, their offense has been phenomenal. For what it's worth, though, road favorites after 3 straight home games, 35-1 against the spread since 2003. That's 36%. After multiple wins in a row at home, 9-21 against the spread, 30%. So not the biggest sample size, but it makes sense. You have these teams at home, people see them winning, and then they go on the road, and it's a little bit of a reality check. I could go into Belichick stats all day. Belichick 28-13-2 as a dog since 2003. That's just 68.3%. He's covering by over 6 points per game. Home underdog since 2000, Belichick 15-4 against the spread, 79% with 12 outright wins. October Bill. You want to get an October Bill? This is when, the Patriots usually spend the first month or so figuring some things out, testing some things. October Bill, 51-23-3, 69%. Nice. Since 2003 in October. He's 56.7% against the spread in all of the months combined. This is his month. The Cowboys still have a very vulnerable run defense. They're bottom 5 in pressure rate, adjusted sack rate. So I just think the Patriots, I think they're going to be healthier along the offensive line. Last week they were missing 4 starters. They should get a couple of those back this week. I think that they're going to dominate the line of scrimmage. And Jones, when he needs to throw, will have time to do so. And that's important for a rookie because the Cowboys just aren't generating pressure. The Dallas defensive stats look good, but it's all buoyed by turnovers. I mean, this team is second in EPA from turnovers, second in EPA from net turnovers. What are they, plus 12 in turnover margin on the year? They've recovered 5 of the 7 fumbles that they've lost. The opponents have lost 2 of their 3 that they've fumbled. Opponents are averaging over 20 more penalty yards and 2 more penalties per game. I mean, just there is so much regression coming to this Dallas defense. And then, you want to throw, there's value in the line. You want to throw on top of all that, kind of the sprinkles on top of this play, enormous coaching edge and big special teams advantage for the Patriots here. So I think that this is, I think the Cowboys are a real contender in the NFC, but this line is a bit inflated. I think the Patriots can control the clock here, control the line of scrimmage, and there's just going to be some regression coming for this Cowboys defense that is just living on turnovers. And that's just not going to continue. So give me the Patriots at home as a home underdog, just like I did against Tampa a couple weeks ago. I think the Patriots win this game outright, but I'll gladly take the 4. 3.5 here. I would not go to 3. Try to find that 4.
Yeah, so this wasn't one that was like on my radar, but like you've made a very convincing point here. It's just, Dallas coming off the 3 straight home games. I thought they may have come down to earth last week, but then, and they were tied going into the half with the Giants, but just too many injuries to withstand.
The Giants lost their entire starting offense.
Yeah. I felt good about the game going into halftime, and then, or right before the half where the Giants tied it up at 10. I think Dallas then gets a quick touchdown going the other way. But
you literally had the entire backup Giants offense on the field in the second half.
Nuts. So I mean, the Cowboys, listen, Trevon Diggs continues to stand out, but at some point he's not going to get an interception in a game. Like, he's not going to end the year with 17 interceptions or however many interceptions. So I could see it from that angle. I think, and then, Houston almost beat the Patriots last week. So I think a lot of people are going to kind of stay away just based on that. But Houston got really lucky too. They got a bunch of big plays and jump balls. That Chris Moore play almost looked like the Stephon Diggs walk off. I mean, how crazy it was just a number of things went wrong for the Patriots last week. And their banged up O-line might have played better than their real O-line. So now they have some options going forward. So yeah, this is what I might have to get on. I really hadn't considered it, even though I do have the line projected a little bit lower than the market. So I would have leaned Patriots regardless. But yeah, the more I think about it, this is a good spot to sell Dallas. All right, for my third pick and the 5th overall pick of the Week 6 Sunday 6-pack, I am going with the Minnesota Vikings -1 in Carolina. And listen, Minnesota's been a roller coaster all year long. They let me down last week. I feel like I bet on them most weeks on this podcast. Just after losing to Cincinnati, I feel like they've just kind of been a little bit underrated. But I still think this team is a little better than it's getting credit for. And this one comes down to me, though, just on simple looking at the quarterback matchup and, who they're facing. Both of these teams are going to get pressure. The difference is Kirk Cousins is going to get the ball out. They might not get big plays when he's under pressure, but he's going to get the ball out. He's not going to take, too many negative plays, make too many turnover mistakes. He has got better receivers in totality, I think, than Carolina. But you look at Sam Darnold, and Minnesota's number 2 in pressure rate. Carolina's number 1. Sam Darnold's rating this season drops from 97.5 to 59.6 under pressure. On 77 pressure dropbacks for Darnold this year, 1 touchdown, 4 picks, 13 sacks. And in this game, they might even take more sacks, a higher percentage of sacks than that, because what's the narrative going to be for Darnold? Coming off a game where he took 2 games where he's thrown 5 picks combined in those 2 games. It's going to be eat the ball. A sack is better than a pick. If McCaffrey's back, it's going to be dump it off to McCaffrey. They're going to hand the ball off a lot. So I just, I don't think the Panthers are nearly as good as their record. I don't think the Panthers are, I just think it was a matter of playing the Giants, the Jets, and the Houston Texans in Davis Mills' first start. And then, the Panthers, they have a lead on Philly. They can't close the deal because Darnold is reverting to old Darnold. And this is exactly who I thought he was against a Mike Zimmer defense only having to cover by a point. I'll take it. I'd take it up to 2. I think Vikings win this game. I wouldn't take it past 2 because they'll probably miss an extra point or something silly like that. So I think, sometimes I say, hey, you can take it to 3 if you have a good team like a Baltimore, good kicker. But Minnesota, it's been up and down here. But Mike Zimmer, too conservative. That's what everyone's saying in Minnesota. And I probably agree, I think. But it's even still, you expect a running back to fumble in that spot that Madison did. That's still like a less than 1% chance of fumbling and then losing the fumble in that spot. So still a fluky occurrence. But this is a Mike Zimmer kind of spot. Mike Zimmer, for whatever reason, in the division is where he tends to struggle. Preparation wise, when it's an unfamiliar opponent or just a less familiar opponent. So any game that's in the conference but non-divisional or in the AFC, 38-19-1 against the spread in his career, 67% against non-divisional opponents on normal rest. So as long as, the Vikes don't have, aren't coming off a short week, or the opponent isn't coming off a bye or something like that. Mike Zimmer's covered 2/3 of the time in this spot. I think it's a low scoring, ugly game, but I think the Vikings win because their offense will be better under pressure than Carolina's.
Yeah. I agree. I think you nailed the handicap here. By the way, McCaffrey's 50-50 to be back per rule this afternoon, if anyone's curious about that. But what the Panthers fans, what happened? You're 3-0. I thought you were going to the Super Bowl. Now you're home dogs of the Vikings. The Panthers came crashing back down to earth as we expected. One of the easiest schedules you'll ever see. They played 2 rookie quarterbacks making their first starts in the first 3 games, and then a Saints team that didn't have any coaches off a huge win. But when I broke this game down, I saw one key angle here is these 2 teams are really similar in a lot of ways, that they, their secondaries are iffy. And especially with the Panthers, they have 3 of their top 5 that were played on their nickel packages are still out.
Yeah.
And, but they can get a lot of pressure. These 2 teams are top 3 in adjusted sack rate. They're top 5 in third down defense. Zimmer's defense is always going to be elite on third downs. And then their offensive lines aren't great. So what is the difference here? Well, the Minnesota offensive line is top 5 in adjusted sack rate. Panthers are bottom 10. A lot of times that speaks more to the quarterback. And Carolina, 27th in pass blocking efficiency.
Yep.
Vikings, 20th. So they're better there. Darnold holding onto the ball for an average of 2.8 seconds. Cousins, 2.5. So Cousins is going to be, number one, he's playing at a very high level now, and he's just better overall than Darnold. And I agree, he has better overall receivers. There's going to be a lot of pressure. I've loved what I've seen from the Vikings defensive front. You're going to have to get rid of the ball quick here. That is probably going to be the difference. Cousins is going to have more success doing that. If you want numbers here, when throwing under 2.5 seconds, Cousins 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 90% adjusted completion percentage, 111 quarterback rating. Darnold, 2 touchdowns, 3 picks. His rating is 78. So you can see the difference there. So I think that, both teams should be able to generate some pressure. And the quarterback that's going to be able to deal with that, make more plays and fewer mistakes is Cousins, which is ultimately what this game comes down to.
And if you guys are curious, before you go on, just want to throw in, if anyone's curious, so the reason this line shifted from, I think the Panthers were at one point a 1-point favorite, and it's not a big change, even though it seems jarring from a team to go from a favorite to an underdog. It's not a big change because you're not always going to post a pick 'em as a sports book, so it's really going from like 1-to-1. It's not that big of a deal. But if you're wondering why, Caesar Sportsbook reported that they took a $500,000 wager on the Vikings money line at even money against the Panthers. So that's kind of what shifted the line toward the Vikings, some big money early in the week.
Could be a casino player. You never know. All right. Could be Floyd Mayweather.
All right. No, I think it's the right side. But
I agree with you. All right. For my 3rd pick and the 6th overall pick of the Sunday 6-pack, a lot of pressure here. I'm going with my Baltimore Ravens, -3 at BetMGM at home against the Chargers. And why I say a lot of pressure, this is my team. This is the team that I've the highest against the spread percentage betting on. People trust when I say bet them. This year, I bet the Ravens 1 time against the Chiefs. And I had the under in the Raiders, which I would bet 1,000,000 times over. I had the under in the Lions and the under in the Broncos. And I didn't bet last week. So I've had a good read on them this year. And I am a little worried about I wanted them to lose in a way. Like, they're going to the playoffs. But if they lost and then it was a slam spot. Like Harbaugh off that loss at home against a 4-1 team. Just a little extra. Harbaugh's so good in those spots. But they came back to win. So it gives her a little fatigue. It's a short week. It's something to consider. I mean, LA does have to come across country. But this Chargers team, first of all, I have to just give Justin Herbert is incredible in every sense, but this offense has major regression coming. I mean, it is insane what they're doing on 3rd and 4th downs. The Chargers' 3rd down offense is just like the third downs that they're converting, like these 3rd and 8s, 3rd and 9s, 3rd and 10s, they're 0.485 EPA per play on 3rd down, success rate 56.5%. The Ravens on 3rd down, by the way, negative 0.56 EPA per play. That's dead last on 3rd downs. Success rate 33.3% on 3rd downs, dead last. Well, you say, okay, is the Chargers offense a lot better than the Ravens? Well, if we look at early downs, the Ravens offense, if we remove garbage time, number 2 in the NFL in EPA per play, number 3 in success rate. What are the Chargers? 23rd and 20th. So, I mean, this is a Chargers offense that is living on converting all of these 3rd downs. And Justin Herbert's incredible, but they cannot maintain this level of success on 3rd downs. And I didn't even get to the 4th down success. Chargers on 4th down this year, if you remove the one fake punt where they tried to fake punt on 4th and 15, which was bizarre, they're 8 for 8 on 4th down. 8 for 8 on 4th down. With a bunch of, there's like been PIs, there's been holdings. The average yards to go, 6.2. 8 for 8. Their opponents are 3 for 8. Average yards to go, 3.75. So, I mean, it's just every 4th down is going their way. Their 3rd downs are going their way. Look, another thing to keep in mind here, Ravens special teams. This is an enormous special teams advantage, as big as you will find in the NFL. I have the ball. If you go by DVA, the Chargers are 29th, Ravens are 2nd. But my ratings for special teams, I spent a lot doing that. I have Ravens 1 by far, and Chargers 32nd by far. The Chargers are using a kicker who couldn't make field goals in college in Vizcaino. I don't know how he got on the roster. I have no idea how he's on the roster.
Kickoffs, bruh.
Yeah, but they get a field goal kicker too.
Yeah, I know.
It's insane. He was a 60% kicker in college. He couldn't even make extra points in college. It's crazy. And so if you're just going to be that, I forget that team and that coach, they're never going to kick a field goal, fine, but they actually let him kick field goals and miss extra points. It's crazy to me. So another thing here is, look, the Ravens have been killing teams throwing the ball on early downs, killing teams. And everyone is just trying to stop the run at all costs. And Lamar Jackson is just shredding. I mean, just incredible how he's playing so far this year, throwing the ball. He's just so much improved. And imagine if, Hollywood Brown didn't have 4 touchdown drops in one game. But this is a game where the Ravens run offense gets going, I think. And the Chargers kind of invite you to run, and they try to take away that deep pass. That's why I don't like the over here. You would think, all right, I think that both of these teams are going to score a lot. I think the Ravens are actually going to sustain drives finally running it. And then there's going to be regression on this Chargers offense. The Chargers are 31st DVOA against the run, 31st in line yards, 31st in 10-plus yard runs allowed. They're allowing 5.6 yards per rush. That's dead last in the NFL. They're 29th in covering tight ends. This is all the things you're going to see this, I think, this vintage Ravens offense. Outside of Joey Bosa, look at this Chargers roster. It's very underwhelming in terms of their defensive linemen and their linebackers. Kenneth Murray's also on IR. And another important piece here is Deshaun Elliott should return for the Ravens. He's not an all-pro safety. He's not a Pro Bowler, but he makes a big difference because the drop-off is from him to Brandon Stevens, who I like in the future, but this is a kid who had a start last week, and he was lost out there. And Wink Martindale's defense is one of the most complicated in the NFL from a secondary perspective. And Stevens is a kid that never played defensive back until he got to SMU. He was running back in high school, running back at UCLA, transferred to SMU, and the Ravens took him as a rookie, and he played corner, and then they wanted to move him to safety. Both of their safeties were out last week. Geno Stone was out too. They should all be back, and they had to start a rookie, and he was lost in coverage last week. That'll help against the Chargers. You have Marlon Humphrey on one of the Chargers' excellent receivers. The other one is a concern, but I think that there's some regression coming for this Chargers offense. They're getting a little bit too much love in the market. I think the Ravens should be able to control the clock. I think that they should be able to get enough stops. And I think that's just this regression is coming for the Chargers offense. And don't sleep on the special teams here. It's a massive, massive factor in this game. And look for the 2.5. This didn't come through on the app yet, but there's a good chance Tucker wins this on a field goal. It's going to be close. I don't think the Ravens are blowing out the Chargers. And also there's a big backdoor risk. If you're up 10, like the Ravens secondary is not as good as it's been. And it's still trying to figure itself out. So if I can't find the 2.5, I'm probably going to buy it to 2.5. I might throw it in a money line parlay with something, but I'm waiting on that 2.5 and seeing how cheap I can get it. There's a ton of Chargers love in the market. So that's why I'm holding out. I think that it could come. I'm seeing on our app and some other places, it's like 92% of the bets are on the Chargers. So a little bit too much love for LA here. I'll take them 3 here, but wait to see if you can get under 3.
All right. So Harbaugh. Now we only have data from going back to 2015 in terms of public betting data, but over that span, when the Ravens are getting 40% or less of the spread tickets, Harbaugh 21, 14, and 1, 60% against the spread, covering by an average of 5.2 points per game. So it's been a profitable spot to look for the Ravens here when the public's on the other side. So like that one as well. But yeah, definitely want the 2.5 here because I do have a lot of respect for Herbert and his Charger team. They just never seem out of a game. All right, so that was our Week 6 Sunday 6-pack presented by Athletic Brewing Company. To recap, Stuck is going with Cleveland -3 against the Cardinals, the Patriots +3.5 hosting the Cowboys, and the Ravens -3 hosting the darling LA Chargers. I am going with the Pittsburgh Steelers -4.5 at home against Geno Smith in Seattle. The Chicago Bears +4.5 at home against the Pack, and the Vikings -1 on the road against the Carolina Panthers. That concludes our Week 6 Sunday 6-pack presented by Athletic Brewing Company.